Let's be real, finding allocated bourbon can feel like chasing a unicorn. You've probably walked into your local store, asked about Weller, Blanton's, or Pappy, and got that same look from the manager. Yeah, good luck, right? But here's the truth. There are real ways to get your hands on those bottles without wasting years of your life. Today, I'm breaking down 4 of the best strategies that actually work. And before we dive in, if you're into bourbon tips, whiskey history, or just want to score better bottles without the frustration, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. It helps out the channel and it makes sure you don't miss the next drop. This is hands down the most reliable way to score allocations. Let me explain why. Your local liquor store gets a shipment and the manager or owner decides who gets what. Now, if you only walk in once a year and ask, "Got any Pappy?" you're going to get laughed at. But if you've spent the last year supporting that store, you might get a quiet text or a wink when something special arrives. Here's how to actually build that relationship. Buy regularly. Don't just wait for the big bottles. Pick up your everyday drinkers, beer, wine, regular bourbon bottles, or mixers there. Become a familiar face. Talk bourbon, owners and staff love chatting with real enthusiasts. Share what you're drinking, ask what they've tried, trade tasting notes, bring samples. This one is underrated. Crack open something nice at home, pour a 1-ounce sample, and bring it to your store manager. Nothing builds goodwill faster than sharing bourbon with someone in the business. Converse with the manager. Simple, genuine conversations go a long way. Don't beg for bottles, just be real, be consistent, and be friendly. I can't tell you how many people I know who've scored bottles of Weller 12, Eagle Rare 17, or even a Van Winkle because they invested in those relationships. It's not about being a big spender, it's about being a loyal customer who appreciates the store. This is hands down the most reliable way to score allocations. But as I also explained, it will take time, effort, and money. Just like most things worth having in life. Okay, let's talk about the next method, camping out at distillery drops. Now, I'll be honest, this one isn't for everyone. You're probably going to be waking up at 4 a.m., standing in the cold, and waiting in a long line overnight. But there are 2 big benefits. You're guaranteed close to retail pricing. You're getting these bottles straight from the source, which means no markup other than the slight upcharge since it came from the distributor. Community. This is actually one of my favorite parts. You'll meet other bourbon enthusiasts, trade stories, and sometimes even sample bottles right there in line. I've made friends I still talk to years later just by waiting at a Buffalo Trace or Heaven Hill release. Now the downside is obvious, your time. You might spend an entire day waiting for a bottle that you may or may not get. But if you live near Kentucky or happen to be visiting, it's worth trying at least once. Some of the most fun bourbon experiences happen right there in line. Number 3 is trading bottles with other bourbon enthusiasts. One of the most underrated ways. If you've got bottles that don't excite you anymore, use them to get something you really want. How it works. Join local bourbon groups, online or in person. Offer fair trades, value for value. Maybe you've got an extra E.H. Taylor small batch and someone else has a Maker's Mark LE you've been after. Some collectors specifically look for region-specific bottles. What's common in your area could be gold somewhere else. Tips: be respectful and fair. Don't try to rip people off. Your reputation in the bourbon community matters. Always do trades safely, ideally in person, at a neutral location. Trading is a fun way to expand your collection without spending more money, and it's another way to build friendships in the hobby. Alright, let's tackle the controversial one, paying secondary prices. I know, the secondary market is a controversial topic in bourbon. Some people absolutely refuse to do it, and I get it, but here's the truth. Time is money. You could spend months hunting, camping, and hoping to get lucky. Or you could just work an extra shift, save up a little, and buy the bottle outright. For example, say you want Weller 12. You could spend 6 months trying to build that perfect store relationship, or you could drop $150 and have it today. Same with something like Old Forester Birthday Bourbon, although that is more expensive. Now, I'm not saying you should always pay secondary. I personally try to avoid it. But every once in a while, if there's a bottle you really, really want, it might actually be the most efficient option. At the end of the day, it comes down to what your time is worth versus what that bottle means to you. So let's recap. Build real relationships with your local liquor stores. This is the long game, and it pays off the most. Hit distillery drops, a fun way to grab bottles at retail and meet new bourbon friends. If you have any extra bottles of value, you can always look for a trade for another bottle that you want. Don't rule out secondary. Sometimes it's just the fastest way to get what you want. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more bourbon tips, and drop a comment below. What's the best allocated bottle you've ever scored? And how did you get it? I'd love to hear your stories.